afternoon to a few of them, and I think good evening to few of them as well. So we have people from all over the world joining us for today's webinar. My name is Pratishtha, and I'm the co-curator for Startup Podium. Startup Podium is a brainchild of Vibrazone. So the key, this initiative is mainly to bring together key stakeholders and key players in the entrepreneurship ecosystem together to help innovators and entrepreneurs come together and see how you can actually elevate and expedite the process into commercialization. So for today's session, we have a very power-packed panel. I'd like to introduce you to the chair of today's session. For today's session, we are going to be having Ms. Rangapriya Gautham. She is the Deputy Director of Virginia Tech India. A little more about her. She has over 17 years of senior management experience in large companies, and she's associated with 3 leading educational institutes like Swarnabhumi Academic Institute, Aptech Computer Education, and SSI Limited. Created significant brand equity in a very short time. Over to Ms. Rangapriya to take over the session on on life sciences and biotechnology. Over to Ms. Rangapriya.
Thanks, Pratishtha. That is a very short and sweet introduction.
I'll more about. So I think it's better to mouth itself.
Right. So can you all hear me? Others, yeah. Lovely. So thank you, Pratishtha, once again, and thanks for the opportunity. It's great to be here amongst very successful women. And today I would start the session with just probably taking a few minutes of the program itself to have our panelists introduce themselves. I would probably look at a 1-minute quick introduction so that you can do justice to your portfolio rather than me talking something which is probably not so from the heart. But yeah, so let me first get Leah. Leah, if you're, yeah. Leah, if you could just give a very brief introduction, and I will start off my first question from you.
Sure, Priya. So my name's Leah. I'm from Australia, and I actually am based in Paris with my startup in blockchain. And in the past, I was a pharmacist. I went into digital therapies, looking at electronic medical records and robotics in healthcare. And since then, I've got into the field of blockchain, and that's where I'm working now.
Wow, thank you so much. And that brings us to our first question. So women in technology, do you think we're all there, or is it going to take some more time?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question. I think we're getting there. I really think that we've seen some advances in the last couple of years, and particularly the encouragement and support seen by women tech groups and incubators and angel investors and VC groups as well that are really encouraging this. And I really believe that we are starting to balance out the field. But there are some countries that are probably lagging behind in that. So I think we need to all collaboratively work to really encourage women into sciences and technology streams as well. I know that's been a part of my past as well. It's been all through my career that there are not a lot of women in tech, and examples even in Australia working on a tech team with 50 men and 3 women. So, you know, that's we've seen an advance in that, but I think we can definitely encourage women to further support each other to get into these fields, and men as well, ask them for support to get into these fields.
Well, yeah, I think we sincerely hope that there's more number of women who are in the healthcare startup ecosystem. So my next person that I would like to call upon is Shruti. Shruti, can you just briefly introduce yourself, and then I'll have a question for you after that.
Sure. So I am Shruti Kushwah. I used to be a pharmacist. Then I was working as medical advisor for almost 5 to 6 years. Now I run a technology company, more of product engineering services. So that's about it. Like, we create medical devices, smart healthcare devices, smart diagnostic devices. That is what I do. But I bring my overall experience as a medical advisor to the things which we do as a medical writer also. So yeah, it's been a good journey so far.
Thank you, Shruti. So do you think technology alone is a silver bullet for healthcare? Instead, do you think there's convergence in digital and health and human interaction? I mean, so is technology alone enough, or do you think there's a convergence between human healthcare and interactions?
So I think technology plays a major role in it, not that it is enough, but yes, technology plays a major role in easing, like we get a lot of problems from clients and customers that, they want to build something which probably helps the patients for easy movement of the legs and the muscles. Now, when we talk about those kind of problems, we want to create those kind of devices, small devices or wearables. That is where technology actually converges with the problems of patients and in the healthcare system. You talk about patient monitoring devices, you talk about nurse calling devices, you talk about patient data storage devices, drug dispensers, all of them. So we actually have moved to a world where technology actually plays a major role in easing out our day-to-day life. So of course it has a major role, but not too much, because we are still far from exploring the true aspects of technology and also putting a human element into it. So yes, I think there is a lot of role and a lot of scope both.
Today we see a lot of data that is getting transmitted either through our heart rate monitors or the Fitbits and the Apple Watches. Do you think this kind of data that companies are getting, is there going to be a data explosion, or is there a way that people are using this to make informed decision making to create the right kind of products? I mean, you're in the technology space, so that's why this question for you.
Uh, so in the forthcoming future, as we stick around technology, data is going to be the fuel. Okay. So without data, you cannot have any sort of technology. Whether we talk about, Leah said blockchain, she's working on blockchain. Okay. Without any sort of data, no, technology is dead. So I think if they want to ease up, on one hand, if the problem wants to be solved about the data of heart rate or about the data of your health, there needs to have that kind of data exchange. Otherwise, the technology won't be able to flourish itself. So that is one part. But the second part, again, it depends on the company to company that how much exposure they want to give it to the data. So the same data can be used for beneficial purposes to hospitals, to telemedicine startups, to a lot of other areas where streamlining of this data can help bring a lot of change in the lifestyle of our future generations. But on the other side, it can also have its own demerits of data being exchanged. But I think if we want something better, we have to do it. It's like you have to accept the demerits with which it comes.
Thank you, Shruti. Over to, should I say that as Peeraya? Have I pronounced it right? Okay. Can we have you introduce yourself, and then we'll go over the question.
Okay. So my name is Peeraya. I'm the doctor specialized in rehabilitation, and I was fancy and love to use the rehabilitation technology to help people. So I continue my master degree in biomedical engineering and starting to do some like the device to help my own patients.
Wonderful. So your innovation was in 2018, right?
Yes, that's what I started.
Yeah.
So I started the device to help in patients with neurological disease, such as Parkinson patient, stroke patient, and my interest is aimed to improve their walking, to improve their walking better and improve their balance and reduce their falling.
So your question, Priya, is that do you think predictions are not there in these kind of ailments? So how do you actually go about creating a product for that? Because I don't think you get all data which is related to before you even start off on something. So if you have to be updated, so you need a lot of data. So how does it happen in your case, and what are the various means and measures in which you collect data?
I think the easiest way for me, and maybe different from the other company, is because I'm based inside the hospital myself. So it's not that difficult to getting the data from the patients. And before doing this innovation, I already have some information about how they work. So it's quite not that hard to find the support and to do with my own our own patients and get support from other doctors in the same hospital. So I think that's the main key of difference from the outside the company.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Priya. So I move on to Dr. Suthira. She's here?
Hi, I'm here.
Yes. So can you just give a brief introduction about yourself, Dr. Suthira, and then we can go?
Yes, sure. So I'm Suthira. I'm a pharmacist by training. I got a PhD in health economics. So come back to Thailand and then work on access to medicine issues as a researcher and a faculty of pharmaceutical science at Chulalongkorn University. And I learned that there's a lot of access to medicines issue, especially for high cost and especially biologics medicines in these countries. I met my co-founder, so then we start a biotech company called Baiya Phytopharm that is trying to do research and development on biologics from upstream process. So we're trying to manufacture the whole and research the biologics drugs and vaccines in Thailand from the beginning. And right now we're working on COVID-19 vaccine as one of our major projects. Then, so that's us.
Yeah. Thank you, Suthira. That's a fantastic work that you're doing in the pandemic, and I think everybody's looking forward to such new drugs. I think because it is very, very important today with what's happening, and great that you're there and you're in the forefront of this particular,
Thank you.
Yeah, and superb. I'm so glad to have met you. So I just, irrelevant to what you're trying to do, but a question is that, so there is a lot of funding that's coming in the area of pharmaceuticals, and right now with this being in the forefront, there's a year of care and tariff, if I have to put it. Care and tariff meaning there's something that you have to work with a budget. At the same time, you have to think the best for the patient. So how do you sort of bridge these two, given the scenario that you have to have the best of the breed stuff and at the same time be available to common men? So how does this happen in your case, Suthira?
So basically right now we're trying to come up with a platform that makes pharmaceuticals costs and price more accessible, especially for people in low and middle income countries. And our platform we're trying to use a plant as a fermenters for biologics, and that's how we come up with this whole platform. I think with our platform, we will be, if we can do everything with using the our local capacities, then it means that we can provide these drugs for patients at an accessible price. On the other hand, we can budgets it's like working in this pandemic, it's a good and bad things, because we're working in issues that people are focusing on, right? But it means that we have to raise with time, because we want to and that's mean more money that we need to be invested in. Good thing about it is that people are so interested in these topics, and then investment is easier than usual situation. So it's a very hard so it's a good and bad, working in this under this situation. I don't know whether I answer your question or not.
Yes, I assume that it was a difficult question to answer, because either way it's going to be, some trouble or the other. But then I think that was a great point that you mentioned about how important it is to balance between the two and still be able to do the best. So I think I've introduced everybody. I'm not sure I see the other people, but the list that I have is only the people whom I called out for. Now I'll move on to questions which are very generic in nature. I would ask any of you to answer, or one after the other you could answer, because this is something which is very important. I felt when
Sorry to interrupt. I think Miss Sona Chandra is also online. I don't think her camera is on, but I think she's online.
Oh, great. Sona?
Hey, sorry about that. I've been having some technical issues this morning with the Zoom call, but hope it's okay that I joined via my phone.
Sure. We're absolutely delighted to see you at least joining, because I heard from Muthu that you were having some trouble. So Sona, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, what you do, and about yourself. That will really be helpful to the other panelists.
Sure, happy to do that. So my background is in biomedical engineering, and I really launched my career in digital health, working for Takeda Pharmaceuticals on their digital health incubation and venture investment team, where I founded the first of Takeda's internally incubated startup companies, which is basically a digital health platform focused on improving quality of care for patients with chronic digestive illnesses and chronic digestive conditions. We sort of focused on addressing the significant gaps and inefficiencies in the current standard of care that's really experienced by these patients. So to give you a little bit of an example, irritable bowel syndrome is one of our core kind of disease areas. It's a highly prevalent condition impacting 18% of the population or more. But it's a little bit of a difficult condition because it's what's known as a functional condition, which means that there's structurally nothing abnormal about the person's body. So if you were to do an endoscopy or colonoscopy, you wouldn't be able to point to something physiologically wrong with the person, but these people are still experiencing symptoms that are very debilitating to their quality of life. And so what happens is that they often go to their primary care doctor, and their GP is kind of just like, you're just having some tummy problems, go home, eat some fiber, take some pain medication, you're fine. But these people are sort of helpless without anywhere to turn to, and the clinicians feel helpless because they don't really have much resources to offer these patients. At the same time, we recognized a lot of research that showed a lot of clinical efficacy between dietary interventions and mental health interventions, as well as lifestyle interventions. And so we decided to create a virtual provider practice that includes an interdisciplinary care team across gastroenterologists, dietitians, psychologists, and health coaches. We trained them on proprietary clinical protocols addressing those inefficiencies in care. And we enabled access to that care team through a virtual telemedicine solution. So that's a little bit about kind of my core background experience.
Yeah, thanks, Sona. And I remember they always say IBS is something that, it's every man's disease, and it's a common disease. It's not with rich or poor, but it comes to everyone.
Yeah.
I think the lifestyle that one leads, whether it's stress or whatever, but it's just sort of a manifestation into an IBS. And if the doctor has to prescribe, you absolutely right. So one of the things that comes to my mind when I hear what you've done and is that measuring quality of life is just not clinical indicators. So I think your positioning of your product is very apt. But can you just tell us about how do you sort of measure quality of life? How do you measure quality of life if you had to measure that as an indices within what you're trying to do?
Sure. No, absolutely. It's a great question. And one that makes it a little bit difficult in our area in this particular domain. So with IBS, there's a few ways that you can think about quality of life. There's the pure sort of impact of the severity of the symptoms that the patient is experiencing across key GI symptoms like abdominal pain, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, etc. And then there's ways to basically assess that true impact that those symptoms have on the patient's ability to live a normal life. So there are validated patient-reported outcome measures that have been established as correlated with overall objective indices of health that really aim to correlate impact on quality of life with physiological indications of health. In IBS, it's a little bit more challenging, as I mentioned, because it's a functional GI disease. But the quality measures focus on things like You know, how much did you as an individual feel you were able to control your condition over the last 2 weeks? How much did you feel that your condition impacted your ability to engage in normal activities of daily life? How many times did you feel you had to say no to social activities and social outings because your condition made it too difficult to do that? It really tries to break down all of the factors that contribute to this ethereal concept that is quality of life, and ask questions that discern the impact that the patient's disease might have on that.
Thanks, Sona. I think very, very descriptive about how one should be able to get this kind of clinical indices. So I'm going to open up a few questions for everybody, and I would request you all to, whoever would like to answer can just show of hands, and then we can take on. So my first question is there a bold future for healthcare?
Is there a
bold future for healthcare? Would you like to comment on that?
Of course.
So let's go with Leah. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Well, we've seen in 2020, 2019-2020, the event COVID-19. So is there a bold future? Yes, there is. I think this year has brought along many innovations, including the embracing of things like medical virtual consultations. We've seen the rise of digital therapeutics in the last couple of years as well. Interoperability standards that have been really impactful, I think, in the way that we exchange data as well. And I think also just listening to the projects that have happened within this panel, which are quite exciting. Yes, I think that there is a real future, because we realise that health systems cannot probably continue the way they're going now. And also it's about empowering patients, about, you know, patients are interested in taking back control of their healthcare. So this is about how we empower patients to make better decisions based on how they want to live their life, because they have more access to information now, and also their data, which I think is really important. So yes, I see a bold future for healthcare. Yes.
Shruti or Suthira, if any of you would like to take on and add to what Leah said.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
sorry,
sure, yeah, sure,
somebody
sure, please.
Yeah, so I mean, of course, there's a bold future. It depends on what is your definition of bold here when you're asking.
So like in the areas of, you're all entrepreneurs and you know where your product is and where you are going to. So going to go in future. So you might have a plan, but do you think it is something that it will fulfill within what you guys are doing, or is there something beyond and more that one can you know, accept as some challenges that can be taken? So what I meant was, when you look at IT industry, everybody says there's a bold future, and looking at healthcare, because it's very regulatory. So I wanted to see you know, how each of you would sort of dovetail this to your own business and check if there's a bold future in what you guys are doing, and at the same time as an industry itself.
So, you know, the only problem with healthcare is there are two problems. One is, of course, as you said, regulatory, while doing businesses in the future. And second one is huge investments. So there are some areas in healthcare where innovation requires huge amount of funding. And the results are not certain, because you're not dealing with, you know, a robot, just like in just technology businesses. You're dealing with human intervention. So people, you know, are not really comfortable funding innovations in healthcare, is because they do not know what the result might be. Until unless they know it, they know the importance of it. They have a vision behind it. They know it, that, you know, even if it doesn't work, we're going to keep pumping money. Like you have the COVID-19 vaccine example, and the other female in our panel, like, you know, madam would be able to answer that also. But I think there is a bold future, and you have to define your own areas. Like for our business, we see a lot of innovation happening with devices, with dispensers, with patients also, and with hospitals also. And telemedicine is one area which has a huge scope coming in the future. So yeah, absolutely. I think there is a bold future.
Thank you. I think you really mentioned few points, which is about interventions and as well as the innovation time. I think nobody can predict because it probably can be successful or it can be just another just a trial, but it doesn't come out as a product or something. So
Right.
yeah. So, Suthira, you want to add something? Yeah.
Yeah, I think with the COVID-19, I think this is a situation where I think we all see that, the healthcare system has been, disrupted, especially like for me, we work on research and development, and we know that, normally it takes forever to deliver one product into the market. And now with this, we can prove that, we can do it faster, we can do it maybe cheaper. And then that's mean for me, it's like another disruption that, okay, it's a proof that we can do this, not in, and it's an opportunity for startups like this that, if we can show that we can do it as fast as, big pharma, then it's mean that, there's a place for us, there's a place for orphan drugs, there's a place for rare disease. And I think that's why, for me, there's a bold future for healthcare in this case, and that's mean a better things for patients, because it means that they can access all these kind of things at a better price, and the coverage can be larger compared to what happened in the past. You're on mute.
I don't mean to be, a feminist or any of those things, but this question is more about the studies. So I want you all to validate if what we hear as studies are surely true. So the biggest challenge one has to overcome, women also comprise 70% of the healthcare workforce globally. That's a study. But when it comes to funding, women-led healthcare startups, surprise funding is scarce. So do you all agree with this, or is there something that I'm making an assumption, or what I read was wrong? So I would like you all to just debate about it and keep it more as an open discussion, because as I said, I really don't know the facts, but this is something that I read. And I said, I must ask the women who are there in the forefront of, technology as well as in the healthcare space. You guys are all looking at, getting more and more funding to foster your dreams of creating innovative products. So let me start with Priya. You're on mute.
So in my point of view, I think funding is quite difficult, especially in developing countries like us. So normally people focusing on the research and development funding, but when we would like to test for validation and medical standard to get the CE mark or whatever, like ethical safety, the funding seems to quite a lot, and sometimes people don't have the trust on us to be really moving on for the upcoming project. So it's like we have to do the sub-phasing, like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And I think that is kind of disadvantage, because we cannot wait too long for that to launch our technology. So it needs to be the shortcut.
Okay.
What I found myself is, I don't know how it's going to be in your countries, but comparing to some countries, this phase is quite faster, like in China or in Singapore. So I think if we can get more trust on that, like on the product and get the standards, which is quite important, it should develop further and better innovation product launching in the market.
Thank you, Priya. Who else is there? Any of you can pick up? Sona?
I mean, funding, I'll pick up from here. So funding anyways, overall, irrespective of healthcare, is less in female-led startups. We read an article in Forbes, which was published in 2019, I guess. I don't remember the exact month. But yes, female-led startups have only 30% chance of getting funded in every industry. So that is true. But times can change because there are studies, and we can debate and we can argue with those investors that although only 30% of female-led startups are funded, but almost 20% are successful. So the ratio of success in female-led startups is more than the ratio of success in male-led startups after giving the funding. So that is where the next wave of argument should be, that you focus on the efficiency, you focus on the success ratio, you focus on how companies and systems are built when a female is leading, instead of seeing a male or a female criteria. But yes, it's true. I mean, your assumption is true that it's very scarce.
Great.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to add to that as well, because I've thought a lot about this, and also I've been asked to talk on a few women's panels as well. And I think one of the things that comes up quite a lot is about diversity as well. So the diversity, and so that be gender or ethnic diversity. And you see different countries, like I was on a talk for women, Japanese women in health tech last week. And, you know, just the cultural difference there for them to come out and really express themselves, whereas I guess in Anglo-Saxon culture, maybe in Singapore and so on, they have more ability to be heard. So I think that's a real point around diversity and checking that and really focusing on that. And another point I wanted to make on this is that finding more creative ways to bridge this diversity gap. So perhaps having things like blind pitches. So you have a computer generated voice control, so you can't see if it's a female or a male pitching that. So, you know, really looking at different ways that we can work into the future where that doesn't impact. And I think just that example about blind pitching was an orchestra that they were all blindfolded, the judges, and then they chose people, they selected people based on their performance. So I really think there's something in this that we can work with into the future in an optimistic way of bridging this gap.
Fabulous. I think I like that idea. Yeah. Anyone else would like to just add to that, or we can go to the next question? Well, I don't see anybody. So coming to the very following question, you know, so why did you all get into startups? Let me start with Sona now.
Sure, absolutely. So for me, I think that I actually sort of initially got into the field of healthcare, actually initially wanting to be a medical doctor, because, you know, I sort of from a very young age wanted to move into the healthcare field and really help people and help patients live better, happier, healthier lives. In the US, where I went to school, you typically have to start with an undergraduate degree before going to medical school. And so I started with studying biomedical engineering. And through the process of that education, I sort of fell in love with technology and the opportunity to make an impact on a really huge scale with technology focusing in healthcare. And so kind of branching from that, I started working at medical device and pharmaceutical companies, started exploring the world of innovation and opportunities to really move the needle on a huge scale through innovative technologies and through sort of the startup and entrepreneurial kind of path. And that was sort of what inspired me to be a part of that shift and join kind of the world of entrepreneurs. And I never looked back since.
Wonderful. It's great to hear this. You know, very few people have a very good story to tell. And I think, Sona, you had a right one. And then I'm wishing you guys a great future in what you're trying to do. But really proud of all of you women here, because it's a very difficult area. Anybody else who would like to take on and just give us your, you know, inputs on why you chose this?
So maybe I can share that. I used to be a professor in university, teaching pharmacy students, tell them that, oh, it's, research and development for medicines like this, you have to go through this and this and this. And then at one point I was like, I'm feeling so insecure, like teaching them things that I have never done. So, and on the other hand, I work on access to medicines, and I found out that, okay, no matter how hard I try, to come up with a fancy policy type, people will still have access to medicines issue because we cannot produce it, by ourselves. It means that, we have to be negotiating the price with the pharma, big pharma. Then it's mean that, okay, these are issues that we have to face. And that's why I think, like I jump into this area because of that. But then it gave me a lot of things more than that. And I have more stories to tell my students. And, and it actually changed me from just becoming one professor working on one research topics to, doing anything just to make this thing work. And I think that's a very good story for me to tell my students. And with us working on COVID, it means that now there are more people, there are more students, trying to get into our school just because they hear our story and they're inspired by what we can do. That, research and development for medicine is hard, but it's doable if we try hard enough. And I think that's something that I would like to share.
Great. I think once you become an entrepreneur yourself, you're able to actually connect the dots between a research-based environment to a product, as well as, how you can create a niche for yourself in that area. Because I work predominantly in the research environment within the automotive space. Most of the times our research goes on till 5 years, 6 years. End of the day, we have to see a product. And that's really tough because you have to really try on multiple things. So I think it makes it a lot more important, things to have industry and academia working together and collaborating in such areas. Fabulous. Anybody else? Okay, I think, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we're running out of time.
No, we are pretty good.
Okay, so I'm a very curious person. So as a medical advisor, when I used to work, I've worked in more than 17 different segments, from super specialty like oncology, hepatology, to general physician and all of that. And as a medical advisor, I always was curious about the role of technology and design. So design was something that made me curious that, how is this entire thing helping in the human-centered, approach which we have for problem solving. So I started my entrepreneurship journey as a multi. So you won't believe, I shifted entirely from being a medical advisor to just a design company. I wanted to do a lot of things under it. And of course, medicine and healthcare consulting was a part of it. And slowly and gradually, the entire cycle of curiosity was fulfilled when we actually included engineering and industrial design as a core part. Because then what I do right now is I'm actually merging healthcare technology as engineering and in the design as industrial design to create innovations, to create those kind of products which people come and people tell us that I want to do this and I want to do that. So that's what happened with me. And of course there were a lot of failures also during this, but it was a nice journey. I mean, it is still, and I'm enjoying the road and I'm enjoying the show also.
Shruti, I think that convergence is very important. And I think you come with that domain expertise of, I can do this and this, and there's no looking back. So that really helped you, I guess, in putting together the fabulous thing that you've done. Okay. I have a very cliche question, but I have to ask this because I think without this, how do you manage work-life balance? I'm sure you all have work and a family life. And how do you balance work-life, with the, I'm sure each of the role that you play has a demanding, ask from that side. But I need to know, because I think when people share their stories about their work-life balance, that much more it gives a sort of ammunition for new entrepreneurs who really feel that they have to learn from women who've been successful. So I'll start from the top. I see Lee on the top of my screen, so I'm going to start with that.
Right. So yeah, life-work balance is something that has been an issue for me, particularly when I was consulting onto projects like electronic health record and robotics projects in Australia. So I was quite involved in those before I embarked on my own. And I don't think COVID-19 has made it all that happy environment to get out there and actually have a life outside of this. So it has its definitely its impact on us. And I think anyone that is an entrepreneur knows that there's a certain amount of conviction, a commitment that comes with this. You have to care and you have to want to change. And so I really think, and make the changes. So I think you need to be a little bit mentally prepared when you take on this. It's not an easy journey. Maybe just going back to when I first started, I sort of just put in an application to an incubator in France to actually do a project that was interesting for me, and I got accepted, and then I got accepted into another incubator and then another program as well. And so it just had its own steam. And then by the end of it, I was enjoying it. I was actually enjoying it, but then it came to, okay, what about the rest of my life? So it's about balancing that family life with the work life and the commitment you have for work as well, family, friends, having all of those things that you want in your life, and really understanding, okay, this is putting boundaries around what you do, I think is really important as well.
Great. Thanks, Lee. What about, the others? I'm sure you have, I'm not sure if you're married and you have, somebody and the family, parents, whoever, they all want your time. And I know when you're a startup, there's so much more demand that comes from what you have to do, from what you have to give. So if you could just share, because that really makes a lot of difference to young girls, who probably watching this, fair, and they are able to imbibe good practices, I would say, like in the Harvard Business School, the case studies that you all have can be their life stories. So yeah, go ahead, Priya.
For me, I think I'm quite lucky that my family understand me and always support me about what I do, because it takes a lot of time besides the full-time job. So I also have to use all my holidays and weekend to do that. But it's quite enjoyable when you have something that you have the passion on that. So it's like it's always an enjoyable time to do something you like. So I didn't find it's kind of like the hard work. And I may different from some people because I don't have kids. So that's why I can have the free time to spend and can manageable. I'm not sure whether if I have family like kids or children in my home. I really don't know. How can I manage that? Maybe would like to know from other people's stories as well, how they manage time, because they must be like superwoman, in my opinion.
You sure are. I think women with multiple heads and hands, it really works. Yeah. Sona, do you want to go?
Sure, I'm happy to jump in here. To be honest, this is a work in progress for me. This is something that I'm continuing to kind of iterate on and try different strategies to address. The thing that I've been trying sort of most recently, that I've seen some good kind of outcomes from, is basically to try to schedule everything, including your free time, and relaxing time, and time to spend with your friends and family, on the same calendar that you schedule your work efforts and your kind of advancements on whatever projects it is that you're working on. So in that way, you sort of are building in time for those kind of life-based balanced activities into the schedule that you've allotted for your how you want to spend your time overall. So that's something that's been helping a lot. Also sort of building a team of experts and advisors and people that you really trust around you, so that you can feel comfortable kind of delegating and offloading some of the work that you have on your plate. I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, we can feel very protective of the projects that we're working on. And sometimes it's hard to kind of trust others to do as good of a job as we want for our baby, basically. But somehow finding ways to prioritize building trusting relationships, professionally and personally around you, to help offload some of the work that you have to do, both on the work side as well as on the life side, can really help to enable that balance. So those are some of kind of the tactical approaches that I'm taking.
The key takeaway here from Sona is that scheduling is very important, whether it is personal or professional, and just go by that. I think that's a good takeaway for the girls. Shruti and Suthira, if you could just comment on this.
I myself as a sorry.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So I myself have a very young 2 kids, 6 and 4. So it's a pretty tough time, especially, like as a mom, it's very hard to balance that, that the times that they really need you and the times that your company needs you, right? For me, it's just like I try to commit whatever I try, like, like if I say I'll do this at night, like I'll put them into bed every night. That's the time that I lock for them. And I think that's really helped, because for us, I think it's this is like a mental thing that make us keep, move forward, because otherwise, like, we'll be regret about things that we have done and we haven't done. So that's the thing. The other point is that I think it's very important to communicate with the families that, like, especially for me, like, these can be done not just by me but the whole family. Like, we're in this together, and whatever I achieve, it's their achievement as well. Yeah.
Okay. We have a question from the audience, and I would like to take that, to all of you. So what are the major challenges for women entrepreneurs working in technology? So I'd leave it to anybody who can take that question and answer.
Would you mind if I take this?
Yeah.
So Archana is asking this, and the major challenges with technology is, first of all, skilled, resources. So when I say women are not given full amount of faith or trust when they are working. So most of the technology expertise is expected from men. So when a woman represents it, the entire representation has a glitch in it, first. Second, women are not able to find the right resources, because it's some areas are male dominated areas in technology sector, which is why they're not able to find the right resources. And it brings them at a point, it brings the entire thing at a point where they are not able to move forward. So that is second point. And the third point of is funding, which we discussed already, that people are not able to bring full faith on women-led startups, and hence funding is not there. So a woman might have a great product, but lack of funds, lack of resources can lead her to a stop kind of a signage. So that's what my answer would be.
Thanks, Shruti. I think, Archana, you got the answer from Shruti. I have another question from Sumitra. She's asking, what advice would you give young entrepreneurs who are interested in starting their own business? This is a very generic question, not related to healthcare, but I think it's a good question. Anybody who would like to go?
I would, I'll have a go at answering that if you like. So I would say that if there's something that you're really interested and passionate about, I would start to do my research on there's some great reference material out there. So I think now we can say that if you're trying to embark on a startup, there's great books that you can read, like Lean Startup and so on, to understand some of the methodology, get your mind prepared. Start to validate ideas, to get out there and speak to mentors that you trust and respect. Connect on LinkedIn. There's so many good forums that you can connect into, and also at universities. And I think really, for me, it was addressing gaps. Like I think by nature, I'm a bit of a problem solver. So I started to look at gaps in my industry and what I think I could fix with the technology, but then to validate that is a really important step. And if I'd known then what I know now, I think it would have been a very different, a different road. And so I'd really encourage young female entrepreneurs to validate those ideas, to start reading, to get advice from different females that have been in the industry, because I think we have a real a role in empowering each other in this environment. And there are a lot of great women and men leaders out there that can really inspire people. So, and I've been lucky enough to have that in my life. So I think that's where I'm at. So, yeah.
Thanks, Lee. I think we have another 10 minutes, but what I want to ask and, probably get your views are, there is a lot of disruption that's in the horizon in the medical device category. Do you think that's a healthy disruption, or do you think it's going to help a lot of healthcare companies to revalidate what they're trying to do? Your thoughts on that?
Would you mind me answering that?
Yep.
So most of the disruption is in a positive direction as far as we are seeing. A little bit of it is more on the conceptual and more on the ideological part. Like, we have a mixed generation of people who want to change the world overnight, and they sometimes, in the passion of it, they end up creating solutions which are great when you learn about it as a concept, but they're not actually needed. So the thing is, majorly, of course, the disruption is going to help a lot of companies. Like, I would say that, we actually designed a drug dispenser for, let's say, a hospital or a pharmacy. So that is actually a needed innovation. That is actually a needed disruption for storing a lot of medicines under a pharmacy. So yeah, in and all, it is going in a good direction. And if companies start accepting those innovations, working with young startups and young generations and the young companies, I think it is going to go a long way and bring more synergistic effects. So that's what I would like to say.
Fabulous. So there is this is an era of, say, digitized medicine, I would say, and I think post-pandemic, everybody wants to do telemedicine, and people don't want a contactless kind of, consultation, and so there's a lot of data that's getting captured in. So do you think, in your opinion, that data can be used in the way that you are working in the healthcare segment side? I mean, it could be that some of them could use, some of them don't, but is there going to be a future of just a distance, kind of an operative model wherein they sort of, they only do consultation, but then if they have to do operations, would they have to come to a physical location just for a day, or a day surgeries are going to be more popular? I really wanted to throw this question. Yeah.
It will take almost 20 years to reach to a point which you said, 20 to 25 years. But of course, we are moving right in the telemedicine sector, and there are quite good amount of innovations which are happening from the doctor perspective. So, if there is a patient who is suffering from an ailment which needs an intervention of multiple team of doctors, that is where telemedicine is actually doing a very good role on that area, because most of the doctors can speak, can share the records, can share the patient history and all of that over a cloud. When we talk about data, of course, as I said, before, it all depends on who is holding that data. So data anyways has to be given, because without data, you won't be able to sustain, you won't be able to bring results to the technology which you're trying to build. So yes, I've already answered that question then. But there's a lot of innovation which is happening on the 3D printing sector. And when you talked about surgery, there's a lot of innovation which is happening with RFIDs and robotics. And, there was a problem statement last year when I was in the United States that doctors sometimes forget diagnostic tools like scissors or knives inside the organs, and then they forget it because they seal those organs and the surgery is done. So one of the startups came with a solution that they had an RFID tag with those tools, and through that RFID tag, the entire equipment and all of that can be tagged, can be mapped. Geolocation also could happen. So there are small and bits of innovation which can happen. For that matter, that startup has been funded by J&J Innovation Center, United States, Texas.
Oh, okay. So there's a rise of connected health, I would say, that it has.
Yes, there is.
Yeah. So Pratishtha, I see you appearing. That means I have to wind down.
Yeah, we're right on time. It's 1:25. Yes. So before we wrap up, one last question to all the panelists, including Ms. Priya. So what would be your one piece of advice to all the women entrepreneurs out there? It could just be a word or a sentence.
I would just say quickly, I'm just like, I'll have to go actually.
Yeah, you can start. Yeah, please go ahead, Shruti.
So one piece of advice which I'll give is whatever you do, treat it as like a part of you. Don't do it to show it to anyone, to prove to anyone, to have your own name. Just do it because you are actually want to do it as a part of you, like you take care of your baby or a husband or a father or a mother or anybody in your family. That's how you have to do it. That amount of zeal, dedication and conviction has to be there. So and don't look about the growth of others. That's it.
Do it for yourself, basically. Do it for yourself.
Do it for yourself. Yes. So that's about it. And
Okay,
on this note, thank you so much for making me a part of this panel. It was wonderful talking to all of you. I would look forward to connect with all in the entire women panel one-on-one. And thank you so much, Muthu. Also, if he's there, please give my thanks.
Yeah, he's online. Yes.
Yes. So
thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
You can excuse yourself. Can we hear from Priya?
Yeah, I think one word for me, when you ask, it's resilience. It encapsulates everything, because if you're not resilient, then there is no future. If you don't think of being, sustained in what you're trying to do as an effort, then that doesn't work. So that's one word. Resilience is something which I look as a very, very strong point.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Priya. Leah, what would be your advice to all the women entrepreneurs out there?
I think what I would say to women is have courage. Do something that inspires you and makes you want to get up in the morning. And for me, that was wanting to change the world, for example. And so feel some commitment to that. And if that, have the courage to do it. That's for me.
So you need to be able to wake up to something you want to do. That's great. Suthira?
I think for me, it's just the strength that you have to keep doing, to achieve the goal that you look at. I think with us women, we have that. And I think not just women, but I think this is, very important for us to kind of want to achieve that goal.
Yeah. Thank you, Suthira. Peeraya?
For me.
Yeah, please go ahead. Oh, you're on mute. You will have to unmute.
Okay, but don't forget to listen to the people who use your product or your innovation, because their feedback is quite really important. Sometimes you may be a little bit more confident about your passion. So I think it has to balance between other users, and also your passion is quite strong enough to make you have the determined goal and go straight forward to it. So that would be my suggestion.
Always take feedback. Yeah. Okay, that's great. I think the last panelist is Ms. Sona.
Yep. So from my side, kind of tagging along to the comments that were made about resilience and strength, I would say that learning how to fail well and have a lot of compassion for yourself when that inevitably does happen is really important to sort of building this muscle of resilience. It's going to happen. It's kind of inevitable. It's sort of a rite of passage as part of the entrepreneurial life. So just sort of figuring out how to bounce back quickly and to forgive yourself when it does happen is really crucial. And learning from it as well.
We always be a little hard on ourselves. It's good to be a little soft on ourselves and give us a break. Yeah, that's actually very, very good advice. Thank you, Sona. So on that note, I'd like to thank Ms. Rangapriya for having such stimulating conversations in the last 1 hour on medical technology and life sciences, especially in the space of women entrepreneurship. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us, all the panelists from different time zones and different parts of the world. Waking up early, staying up late. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was a lovely conversation. Hope to work with you guys and see you guys soon. Sometimes once the COVID or the pandemic is over, we get to travel freely. With that,
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning, afternoon, and evening. We will see you guys soon. Thank you. Have a good day, good night, and good evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.